Welcome in, y'all. We're going to be breaking down the NFC Championship today, and this is the main event of the weekend after that Bo Nix injury. I'm pumped for both games, but this one is huge. If you want the Patriots-Broncos prediction, I did the full breakdown yesterday. You can go check that out. So today, I usually do all my picks in one video, but obviously with down to two games, that's different. So what this one's going to be, there's going to be a lot of stats. I'm going to go through some basic ones, some analytics, kind of comparing the teams, looking at it. But if you do just want that kind of minute pre-pick and then my final score prediction, I always do, fast forward into the video to where you see the screen looking exactly like it does right now with the team names at the bottom. That'll be right before I make that pick. But if you're down to stick around and hear what I got to say leading up to that, well, get ready because we're gonna dig into it here. So we'll start, like I said, with some of the more basic ones, but still telling nonetheless. We'll start offensively with points per game, yards per game, and then pass and rush yards per game. So, you look at Seattle, a team known for their defense. They are third in points per game, but a lot lower in yards, right? 8th yards per game, pass yards 8th, rush yards 11th. They actually run the ball a ton, a little inefficient on the ground game, but they get a lot of yards. And I think that's important for a couple reasons. But let me talk about that third in points per game. That's set up by the defense. Seattle is a great example of complementary football. Their defense sets their offense up to succeed time and time again. And then, like I said, 11th rushing yards, despite, they run the ball a ton inefficiently, which, that stinks and all, but it is crucial for them to continue running the ball, which they do because it can set up that play action and it can take some of the stress off of Darnold, which we know always helps him. He doesn't do quite as well under pressure. So I think Seattle has coached this offense amazingly. The defense has set up the offense amazingly. It's been a great year on that side. Now we'll flip it on over to the Rams. A bit different story here. We have their first in points per game, first in yards per game, first in pass yards per game, and 7th in rush yards per game. So, this offense has just been electric all year long. A little more self-made than Seattle, right? Rams are more an offensive team. You got Sean McVay cooking it up. This team, they've been firing on all cylinders. I think we all know the story, right? You got Stafford, potential MVP, Puka, potential offensive player of the year, although I think JSN's probably going to get that one. But this offense is just been incredible. Both teams. Again, as I get into this, you'll see more time and time again. Both these teams are just amazing, and I'm so excited for this game. It's not often you get two teams that are this high in so many categories facing off, and especially when we get to like the advanced analytics. But I'll talk more about that when we get there. Let's look at the defensive side of the ball. Points per game, Seattle first, right? We knew this. This is an amazing defense. They've been all over the field all year long. We saw them against the Niners, holding them to 6. What a game that was. Yards per game, 6th. Pass yards per game, 10th. And the big one, 3rd in rushing yards per game against. But a lot of that, might be due to the fact that they're ahead a lot, right? Teams don't really have the chance to run on them because they're playing from behind, and that's Seattle's formula, is get the lead and they can play their style of football. It really complements them well. They don't play quite as good from behind though. They still play solid, right? But now we'll look at the Rams side defensively, a bit more middle of the road, right? Their offense is the best in the league in most categories, but their defense is a bit more average. Points per game 10th, and that is the best stat they have because yards per game 17th, pass yards per game 19th, rush yards per game 12th. And that, the points per game thing, this Rams team is very bend don't break, right? You see them lower in the yards per game. They tend to give up a lot, and then they really lock in the red zone. And that's how they've relied for, it seems like, a couple years now. They're not the most talented defense, especially on the back half. That secondary is a bit weak. Although they played very well this past week, picking off Caleb Williams 3 times, and they've actually played pretty well against Seattle this year, picking Darnold off 6 times. We'll look at the next thing we got going here is the red zone and third down percentages, which again I was just touching on here. We'll look at Seattle first. In the red zone, Defense, very, very good, right? 5th in the league, only allowing a touchdown on 50% of those red zone appearances. That's phenomenal. That's great. Offensively, a lot to be desired, right? 21st in the league, only putting up a touchdown 54% of the time. That's settling for a lot of field goals when they do get into the red zone. I believe the first time they played the Rams this year, that was the case. A lot of field goals were settled for, which cost them in that one. They put way more touchdowns up on the board when they played the second time, and Seattle got that win. Third down percentage, kind of a similar story of the red zone for Seattle there. The offense is middle of the pack, average right down the middle, and the defensive third down percentage is amazing. 32.9% allowed, first in the NFL. So we know this defense is elite. On the Rams side of the ball, it's all about the red zone. Like I said, it's the bend, don't break, because or at least on the defensive side of the ball, because you look at defensive third down, they're 10th, right, which is solid, at 37.3%, but defensive red zone, almost hard to believe the Rams have a better defensive red zone percentage than Seattle. They force a lot of teams to kick field goals this year, and that's what's won them a lot of games, really. Offensive red zone is a big thing for me to note as well for the Rams, jumping up to 7th this year, because this is an area that the Rams have struggled in since McVay took over. Their red zone offense has not been super great. Funny enough, though, their third down offense isn't spectacular. It's almost tied with Seattle, just a tick behind them at 17. So both third down offenses pretty darn average. So those defenses, a lot of chances to get off the field. Let's look at the analytics now, right? So we got a few here: DVOA, offensive EPA, defensive EPA, and then FPI. Some I put different, more stock in than others, but it's just an interesting perspective to get different perspectives, right? So we'll start with Seattle, DVOA first. And both teams, actually, spoiler, before we get to the Rams, both teams, these teams are first and second in DVOA, and they have two of the best in that analytic category in NFL history. They're not 1 and 2 in NFL history, right? But they're both up there, for the last couple decades. That analytic loves these teams. It is saying these are two powerhouses that are meeting each other in the NFC Championship game. Then you look at EPA, offensively, 15th for Seattle, 2nd for the Rams, and then defensive, it kind of switches, 2nd for Seattle, 10th for the Rams. And then FPI, same thing as DVOA, 1st for Seattle, and right behind them, the Rams at 2nd. So these are two powerhouse teams. They're at the top in a ton of different categories, and the winner's going to the Super Bowl. I said at the start of the playoffs, there's a lot of different ways this could go, but it felt like all roads led back to Rams Seahawks, and here we are. So let's get into the prediction. These two teams have met twice this season, and they gave us two fantastic games. They gave us a 21-19 thriller about midway through the season. Seattle had a 61-yard field goal as time expired, just go wide right. And then a few weeks later, on a Thursday night football game, Seattle overcame a 30-14 deficit in regulation to send it to overtime. Then they overcame the 7-point overtime deficit, scored the touchdown, got the 2-point conversion, won that 38-37 in OT. So if this game can be, just close to as good as those we're in for a great one. It's going to be tight. The line is Seattle 2.5. You got that home field rocking, the 12th man. It was electric against the Niners, that kickoff return. Some of the videos from that are pretty awesome. It's cool to see. I always love a fired up crowd like that. This is it. This is the big stage. And can Sam Darnold get it done is the question for me, because, we didn't really see him tested against the Niners, right? He completed 12 passes. He didn't need to throw the ball. That, like I said earlier in the video, that is the Seattle formula. It's to get the lead and then play their style of football. The Rams in both outings have prevented Seattle from doing that this year. The first time it resulted in a win for the Rams. The second time, the Rams, were up 30-14 with 8 minutes to go. So that's a big thing, is the fast starts. The Rams cannot allow what happened to San Fran happen to them, because if it does, Seattle's going to get in their style of football. The Rams are going to keep trying to throw the ball. It's not going to work. They're going to abandon the run game, and Seattle could run away with this thing, frankly, if they can jump out hot to a hot start, because that's their style. But like I said, we've seen this 2 times this year, and I don't necessarily expect that to happen. The Rams start hot. I think they will again, but I think this game is super tight all throughout of it. No shocker there, right? It's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to the last drive, the last couple drives. You could even see another overtime game in this one. But when push comes to shove, I'm going to take the team that I think played better in the 2 contests, has the more experienced quarterback, the more experienced head coach, and that's the Los Angeles Rams on the road here against Seattle. Not just covering the 2.5, but I have them winning this game. And I don't want to jump the gun here, because you never want to say this, but the winner of this game will without a doubt be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Not saying they will, but this is just such a massive game. It's going to be so much fun. I hope it's a good one. I hope there's not a couple accidental mistakes from one of the teams and it ends up being a blowout just, by bad luck. I'd hate to see that. I hope this is as great of a game as it seems like it's going to be. It's going to be a fun one. Obviously in these, it could go either way, but I really do think the Rams take this one. And a lot of that, like I said, they've been all over Darnold. Darnold hasn't been, the last time he played a playoff game that was remotely close, right? It was losing to the Rams big time last year. Rams picked him off 6 times in 2 games this year. I just don't right now have the confidence in him to overcome it. And like I said, even the Rams won the first one, and in that second one, the Rams were up 30-14. Comebacks. I thought the same thing about the Bears Packers, right? When the Bears made the big comeback there, which was awesome for them. But when you have massive comebacks like that, you require a ton of 2-point conversions, punt return, stuff like that. I don't think that necessarily says you outplayed that team, right? So I think the Rams have played better, and I think they're going to get the job done in this one. But like I said, it's going to be one heck of a game. It's going to be one heck of a championship Sunday. I know I'm looking forward to it. I hope y'all are too. And, in just a couple of days, we're going to find out what 2 teams are facing off in Santa Clara for Super Bowl 60. It doesn't matter what the matchup is. It's going to be a great one. Let's end this NFL season the right way. Hope we have some very fun final 3 games.